When voters came out to the 27th precinct behind me, they hoped to cast their vote in a crucial midterm election. But when they got to the polls this morning, their voice was almost silenced. At the Seahag Marina, they're storing boats on higher ground this time because when Hurricane Hermine came in, the floodwater was to my shoulder, and that sent boats stored on lower ground floating down that street behind me. Volunteers spend days sorting through hundreds of boxes and cans and placing them in their designated spot. All this hard work is worth it to help families in the community. 10 years, Roy would have to come out to his farm and manually pump the clutch to get the water out. But thanks to his new automated system, it's all done electrically. In the statement being delivered behind me, the message is that hate rhetoric and anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in this community. They hope to unite the community behind a belief in love for all. NFL teams around the league are putting their foot down on players kneeling for the national anthem. But the Dolphins say punishing players is harder than it seems. Handling security for big events like the one held here at the Heart of the City Hookah Lounge is something the city and the police department continue to evaluate. Large and passionate crowd is expected here behind me at the GRU offices for tonight's meeting. Commissioner David Arreola said he's looking forward to hearing what the people have to say as the City Commission works to resolve these issues. Reporting from Gainesville, Zach Oliveri, WFT News. As the sun rose in Leesburg, volunteers were rising to the call to action. 25 members of Florida Baptist Disaster Relief met in Leesburg to prepare for a 500-mile trip to the Wilmington, North Carolina area.
We drove up last night and spent the night in one of the units here because I live in Palmetto, Manatee County, so it's about a 2.5-hour drive.
In the early hours of the morning, they were preparing the feeding unit with 5,000 prepared meals on board. The volunteers also loaded 7 trucks with other necessities, plus some equipment capable of clearing storm debris.
We do the hot meal preparation, and then of course along with that feeding complement, we always have our cleanup and recovery guys that go out and do the chainsaw work and do the flood cleanup stuff.
Helping those affected by disasters is a way of giving back for Jody Ross, who nearly died 18 years ago.
I died on the table, and God brought me back, and since then I have been doing whatever I can to help.
The act of togetherness here in Leesburg is a prime example of paying it forward. The people who are helping out in Florence Relief know exactly what the people of North Carolina are going through because they were in the same position just 1 year ago.
North Carolina, they were a great asset to us last year with Hurricane Irma, as well as many other states that came, and we're all going back to help them out.
As they begin their journey, they are not only returning a favor, they feel they are answering a higher calling. After months of campaigning, the day for voters to make their decision on key issues and races has arrived. People in Alachua County hit the polls in potentially record numbers to cast their ballots in the midterm election.
People are very passionate about the direction that the country is going and which direction they want the country to go in. And I think on both sides, whether you're, Democrat, Republican, Independent, I think people want to have their voices heard because they don't want something to happen and say, well, I didn't vote.
When voters came out to the 27th precinct behind me, they hoped to cast their vote in a crucial midterm election. But when they got to the polls this morning, their voice was almost silenced. A small number of voters at the 27th precinct were handed ballots that didn't include the city questions on it about spring elections and GRU governance.
If I had submitted that ballot, my vote would not have been counted.
The issue was resolved by the Alachua County Supervisor of Elections Office.
It affected a small number of voters. We were able to quickly figure out what the issue was. We were alerted by a number of people, and everybody from here on out will receive the correct ballot style.
Several voters told us they were focused on the governor's race.
I think that it's very important that we elect Mayor Gillum to be governor of Florida.
I wanted to make sure that whoever we elected as governor didn't bring state taxes to Florida. That was one of the issues that I was concerned about.
And some were just excited about voting for the first time.
I had that feeling that your vote doesn't really count that much because you're just one person, but it gave me a lot of pride to do it.
For 30 years, Jane says she was a popular realtor in Ocala, but she had to give it all up.
I quit working to take care of my mother a few years ago, and it just kind of snowballed on me. And after she passed away, we just ended up like this.
She's been homeless for a year and says every day is a challenge.
Difficult at times because you never know when you could get arrested. I mean, I've been fortunate that I haven't been.
Jane was just one of the close to 200 people at the First United Methodist Church receiving a weekly Tuesday lunch and other services. These resources are appreciated, but Jane says it isn't enough to meet all needs.
They give services that anyone can make some phone calls and find out about, okay? Do they actually help with shelter? There are not many options out there for shelter.
The city of Ocala and Marion County are both looking to address these needs based on the findings of the Long Way Home study conducted by the Public Policy Institute. The study's chair, Scott Quintel, says housing is one of the top priorities.
Getting folks that are homeless into housing before you address their other needs, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, being able to better manage their dollars and do their budgeting. You get a roof over their head, you get them stabilized, and then you can start to work on the other issues or challenges they face.
With the study's findings, Ocala leaders say the community has to come together to make change.
We just need to listen to what their needs are, to understand what their needs are, and to come back with a response to their needs as to it's going to be more focused on them compared to what we might think as a blanket approach.
For Jane, she has a plan of her own to get her life back on track.
Probably March, but in the meantime, if I get the surgery on my hip and so forth, I can go into a rehab center, nursing home, and be off the streets.
This Thanksgiving travel season is expected to bring the highest volume since 2005. The reasons are somewhat lower gas prices and the stronger economy. Breaking news: nearly 2 years since being arrested after the Richard Spencer event, Tyler Tenbrink has been sentenced up to 15 years in prison. Tyler Tenbrink's guilty plea to attempted murder is our top story tonight. I'm Zach Oliveri. Also elected tonight will be the governor's cabinet, and right now it looks like it will be all Republicans once again. In the race for Attorney General, Republican candidate Ashley Moody received about 52% of the votes. On the horizon in New York City, classic December holiday cheer is being unveiled just in time for Black Friday. Saks Fifth Avenue unveiled its annual holiday windows in New York City yesterday. You could see the 10-story high light show and the first ever digital display that followed the big reveal. Moving on to the U.S. Senate race, most recent numbers show a tight race. Democratic incumbent Bill Nelson has the lead with 51% of the votes, while Rick Scott has 49%.